good news for BRVM investors. The week of May 11 to 15 ended in positive territory, and this was not a small move. The regional market moved higher again, major stocks remained resilient, and several listed companies delivered very strong weekly performances. Welcome to Markets Talk, the Daba Finance podcast that helps you understand African markets in a simple, clear, and practical way. Today, we are looking back at the past week on the BRVM with three main topics: the top stocks of the week, market indexes, bond trades, and of course, the latest update on dividends announced for 2026. Let's start with the most important signal, the indexes. The BRVM composite, which gives us a broad view of the entire market, rose by 1.99% to reach 412.64 points. The BRVM 30, which tracks 30 of the most representative stocks on the market, also rose by 1.67% to 194.55 points. Since the beginning of the year, the BRVM composite is now up 19.35%. Why does this matter? Because when a market rises steadily, it attracts more attention. It means investors are coming back, some listed companies are inspiring confidence, and the BRVM continues to position itself as one of the most dynamic frontier markets at the moment. But there is one important nuance. Trading volumes declined. A total of 3,112,731 shares changed hands, compared with 5,372,015 shares the previous week. That represents a decline of 42.08%. Total transaction value also fell to 6,039.4 million CFA francs, compared with 7,026.9 million CFA francs the previous week. In simple terms, this means the market went up, but with fewer participants. Prices moved higher, but investors did not necessarily buy in large volumes across the board. For investors, this is a signal to watch closely. A market rise with lower volumes can still be positive, but it requires discipline. You need to look at the quality of each company, its results, its dividends, and not only the movement of its share price. Now let's move to the top stocks of the week. The standout performer was Bernabé d'Ivoire. The stock jumped 18.85% to reach 1,545 CFA francs. This performance was supported by investor interest in companies linked to Côte d'Ivoire's infrastructure cycle, but also by the perception that the stock may have been undervalued. In simple terms, some investors believe the market had not yet fully recognized the company's real value. Right behind it, Coris Bank International Burkina Faso rose by 18.8% to 19,905 CFA francs. Since the beginning of the year, the stock is now up an impressive 84.65%. This is one of the most interesting signals on the BRVM this year. Despite a complex security and political environment in Burkina Faso, some investors seem to believe that listed Burkinabe assets can offer significant value when bought at the right price. Safca Côte d'Ivoire also had a strong week, rising by 14% to 3,990 CFA francs. CFAO Motors gained 12.27% to 1,555 CFA francs. Nei-Ceda advanced by 10.03% to 1,920 CFA francs. On the downside, Ora Group Togo recorded the steepest correction of the week, falling by 4.51% to 2,435 CFA francs. Surveyor Abidjan declined by 4.20% to 2,850 CFA francs. Ecobank Group dropped by 3.33% to 29 CFA francs. Ecobank Côte d'Ivoire fell by 2.98% to 16,300 CFA franc. CTAB ended the week down 1.40% at 21,200 CFA francs. The key takeaway is simple. The market did not rise equally across all stocks. 28 stocks advanced, 14 declined, and 5 remained unchanged. The overall trend is positive, but stock selection remains essential. Now let's talk about trading activity. Sonatel Senegal once again dominated the market, with 1,564.2 million CFA francs in transactions. That represented 25.90% of total equity market activity. Sonatel remains a benchmark stock on the BRVM. It often attracts investors because it combines size, liquidity, historical performance, and visibility on revenues. Safca, Côte d'Ivoire, and BOA. Côte d'Ivoire were also among the most actively traded stocks. This shows that investor interest is not limited only to the largest companies. It is also moving towards stocks where the market expects stronger results, a possible revaluation, or attractive dividend distributions. On the bond side, the bond market posted a slight consolidation, Market capitalization declined by 0.31% to 12,287 billion CFA francs. Trading activity covered 123,287 securities, for a total value of 607,525,379 CFA francs. The most traded bond was the State of Senegal 6.75% 10-year bond. It recorded 32,558 securities traded, for a total amount of 319,060,400 CFA francs. On its own, this bond represented 47.80% of total bond transaction value. What does this mean for investors? Sovereign bonds remain very important in the WAEMU region. They allow governments to finance their needs, and they offer investors regular income through interest payments. In an environment where some investors want more stability than equities can offer, bonds continue to play a central role in portfolios. Another important story of the week was Nestlé Côte d'Ivoire. The company published its 2025 results, with revenue rising by 6% to 233.3 billion CFA francs. Net profit increased slightly to 18.4 billion CFA francs, but the company proposed a gross dividend of 9.3 billion CFA francs, compared with 18.1 billion CFA francs the previous year. In simple terms, Nestlé CI is still making money, but it has chosen to distribute less to shareholders. Why? Probably to strengthen its balance sheet, reduce pressure linked to financial charges, and continue investing in production capacity, especially at its Yopougon industrial site in Abidjan. For long-term investors, this is not necessarily bad news. A company that reinvests wisely can prepare for future growth. And that brings us to dividends. For the 2026 dividend season, 27 companies have already announced or proposed dividend payments, with an average yield of 5.35%. Among the highest yields, we have BOA Burkina at 7.35%, Nei-Ceda at 7.31%, BOA Côte d'Ivoire at 6.89%, SOGB at 6.70%, BOA Mali at 6.50%, SGCI at 6.37%, BOA Benin at 6.22%, SAPH at 6.16%, Sonatel at 6.02%, and BOA Senegal at 5.92%. Some announcements have already been officially confirmed by the BRVM, including BOA Burkina, BOA Côte d'Ivoire, BOA Mali, BOA Benin, Sonatel, BOA Senegal, Ecobank Côte d'Ivoire, and Sikabel. On the other hand, BOA Niger, CFAO, Sucrivoire, Bernabé, and Aura Group have decided not to pay dividends this year. For investors, dividends are essential. They represent part of a company's profit that is paid back to shareholders. It is like receiving income while still owning your shares. But be careful, a high yield is not enough. You also need to look at the company's financial strength, its consistency, its debt level, and its ability to keep paying dividends in the future. To access the full dividend calendar, payment dates, and updated yields, download the Daba app. Before we close, a quick word about Daba Academy. If you want to better understand the stock market, stocks, bonds, dividends, and how to invest with a clear method, Daba Academy is here to support you. Right now, there is a special promotion. Use the code PODCAST and get a 3,000 XOF discount on your Daba Academy registration. Looking ahead to the coming week, opportunities should be watched among stocks that combine momentum, attractive dividends, liquidity, and strong fundamentals. But we will not name the specific stocks here because those insights are reserved for Daba Pro subscribers. With Daba Pro, you get weekly recommendations, detailed stock analysis, exclusive data, reduced investment fees, and much more. With Daba Pro, you do not just follow the markets, you stay ahead of them. This was your weekly market recap with Markets Talk, the podcast by Daba Finance. I am your market editor, always connected to the pulse of Francophone Africa. See you soon. Stay curious, stay invested.